To you, brothers and sisters, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Some people think they have Jesus all figured out. They reduce him to a list of rules or facts. They kind of maintain a Sunday school stereotype. They put him in a box. So when he does things that they don't expect him to do, they're surprised. Now, later in John's Gospel, we'll see him walk across a lake toward his terrified friends. We'll see him erupt in fury at the scam artists in the temple. We'll see him heal so many people with just a simple touch, and often overturn the expectations of the religious leaders. And soon he will become known as someone who is very well outside of the box. Now, of course, none of those astonishing events has yet taken place when Nathanael meets Jesus. And maybe that's why it made absolutely no sense to Nathanael that the one for whom the nation Israel had been waiting for centuries, the Messiah, would come from Nazareth, a village just up the road from Nathanael's own hometown. What sort of triumphant king would come from that podunk place to rule Israel? Nothing good comes out of Nazareth. Why would anyone want anyone coming from one of those places? But as Nathanael discovers, Jesus is full of surprises. Through the gospel accounts, Jesus continually baffles both his closest friends and his bitterest enemies. Well, getting to know Jesus means learning to expect the unexpected. Just when we think we have him all figured out, he does something that we never saw coming. How many times has Jesus surprised you? And yet every time it's still a surprise. You know, every blessing that comes my way startles me because it's so far out of the routine of the world that we live in. Well, this time of year, the new year, is a good time to ask ourselves, are we really getting to know Jesus, the real Jesus, or our own image of him? And this time of year, Epiphany, is the good time to ask ourselves, are we striving to follow the light of the one who created light, the whole universe? The one whose illumination dwells within our hearts. The one who beckons us to come closer to him. Jesus, the lover of our souls, acts outside our expectations so much. So let's listen for his quiet, clear invitations to take risks with him, to live and act and speak and be in ways that we have never before even considered, in surprising, unexpected, stretching, and fulfilling ways. Did you make any New Year's resolutions? You're probably not willing to admit it because they're probably already broken, right? But I want to ask you and me to consider making a resolution. We're still early in the year. We can do that. Maybe we could create a resolution to become aware of and act on that idea that you've had. Maybe to do something extraordinary, something a little outside of your comfort zone. Maybe a ministry that you've been thinking about but dismissed as impossible. And maybe that's really Jesus trying to surprise you. I love the story of Samuel in the Old Testament lesson this morning. Can you imagine how annoyed Eli was when this kid keeps waking him up? And it's not me. But he tells him, listen, respond to God. Maybe God is trying to tell you something. Listen, respond. Maybe Jesus is trying to do that with you this year. Maybe it's that spiritual gift that you think, I think maybe I have this gift, but I'm a little too afraid to make sure. It's kind of crazy. And who am I to think that I could do that? Maybe that's an outside-of-the-box experience that Jesus is trying to introduce to you. What is Jesus calling you and me to do that prompts us to say, Lord, you've got to be kidding, like Nathaniel did, in essence. Jesus says, before you dismiss anything as impossible or crazy, come. Come and see for yourself. Get to know me better. See who I really am. And my response is something like, Jesus, sometimes you make us uncomfortable. We don't know what to expect. We like to keep you in a box so that you don't overwhelm us or challenge us or stretch us or surprise us too much. But we realize when we do that, when we keep you in that box, we are separated from the real you. We don't want that. We want you. We want to be surprised. We want to be authentic followers. So help us to see you in the surprising challenges that we face each day in this new year. Amen? Amen. Well, the story continues. When Jesus saw Nathanael coming, he said, there is a real Israelite, not a false bone in his body. Nathanael said, where'd you get that idea? You don't know me. And Jesus answered, one day, long before Philip called you here, I saw you under the fig tree. And Nathanael exclaimed, Rabbi, you are the Son of God, the King of Israel. And Jesus says, you become a believer simply because I say I saw you one day sitting under the fig tree. You haven't seen anything yet. What was it? What did Jesus see Nathanael do under that fig tree? We don't have a clue. I once saw an obituary that struck me. It chronicled the simple life of a woman. She'd never married. She was very active in her church, in her garden club. Everybody in her community knew her. Everybody knew Vicky. But then it came out that they really didn't know Vicky. Because when she died, it became apparent that Vicky was quite a wealthy woman who had generously and often anonymously shared her wealth with many humanitarian causes and educational institutions, most of which served underprivileged young people. She had given herself generously and graciously for years, and no one had a clue. This revelation of generosity served as one last surprise gift for her friends. Most of us invest a lot of time and energy in getting to know the people around us, the people we're close with, and yet sometimes it seems impossible to fully know another person, to see inside their minds and hearts, and to grasp someone else's motives and dreams. After all, we can only know what another person wants us to know, right? And we tend to be self-protective. We want desperately to be known, and yet we construct these walls around us to prevent that a little bit so no one will hurt us in the knowing. What if they found out that about me? So we move through life sometimes feeling a little like orphans because we're caught in this existential catch-22, seeking to be known, but at the same time keeping those walls up. So nobody really knows us. And there's a big problem with that. Who can truly love us if they don't truly know us? when a doubtful Nathanael is led to Jesus, the Lord indicates he knows the true Nathanael, the inner person. He has not a false bone in his body. Here is one in whom there is no God. And Nathanael scoffs at this. After all, Jesus had never even met him before. How could this Nazarene know what kind of person he was? But Nathanael's opinion dramatically changes after Jesus speaks just these few words to him. Somehow, sometime earlier, Jesus had seen Nathanael under a fig tree, doing something that revealed his true identity as an authentically good person. And Nathanael must have thought his act had gone unnoticed. But he had been seen and known and loved by Jesus. And just as Jesus saw and knew Nathanael, he sees and knows each one of us. He knows our lives, our motives, our personality, our needs. He knows the good that we yearn to do, the private acts of kindness and charity, the dreams that keep us going. He knows the pain that sears our hearts, the wants that drive us, the fears that sometimes freeze us into inaction. Jesus sees us and knows us and loves us. So this year, let's let that reality seep in to our consciences, to our hearts. Let's let ourselves become aware of Jesus' constant loving gaze on each one of us. Because when we live as one who is known and loved by Jesus, then we will open ourselves up to all kinds of possibilities, because that realization is just the beginning of a lifetime of authentic love. And Jesus was right. You haven't seen anything yet. Amen.